Sales and Zoom Info. And our topic of the day is get yourself to quota in 2025. What more perfect and apt topic for the beginning of the year here? So real quick at the top, my name is Alexine Mudawar. I am CEO of Women in Sales. We are a large global organization focused on helping women in the field of sales find educational resources, events, connect with one another, and just overall find a place that they can be with one another. So here today, we are co-hosting this event with Zoom Info. And Kayla, can you give us a little overview if people don't know by chance who Zoom Info is?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the introduction. Zoom Info is the leading go-to-market intelligence platform. We help customers find their next best customer, specifically in the business-to-business segment. And Rona and I are absolutely thrilled to be here today. And I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about Zoom Info and our capabilities and some stories as we talk through, how to get to your quota in 2025.
Love it. Love it. And if you're here with us today in the chat, let us know where you're joining from, what city you're in, because maybe that will help tell us where we're going to host an event next together. We just had a really cool Valentine's Day event with the Zoom Info team in Chicago, and we're always looking for other cities. So drop those cities. Let us know where you're joining from. Say hello. And in the meantime, I'm going to pass over to Rona to actually introduce herself, and then Kayla will go to you. So tell the people who you are, why you're here today.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having us. I know Kayla and I are really excited to be a part of the Women in Sales group. My name is Rona Cohen. I am one of our senior strategic account managers here at Zoom Info. I've been with the company for 3.5 years. It has been quite the ride, very exciting, lots of just individual growth, lots of exposure to a lot of awesome things, such a solid team, work with the smartest people, swear to God, in the industry, could not live without them. I am right outside of the Washington, D.C. area in Bethesda, Maryland, grew up here, have a 11-year-old. So I feel like my negotiation skills legitimately stem from managing him on a day-to-day basis with his preteen self. And yeah, that's a quick summary of Rona's entire existence at the moment. Child and Zoom Info.
Love it. Best of both worlds, Yeah. Kayla, what about you?
I am Kayla Prunier, Vice President of Enterprise New Business Sales here at Zoom Info. I've been with Zoom Info for 4 years. Prior to joining the team, I implemented Zoom Info at my previous company, and I saw how incredibly powerful Zoom Info's platform was and said, I need to be a part of this absolute rocket ship going, to the moon. And 4 years later, I'm still here. To echo what Rona said, part of the reason that I enjoy being a part of Zoom Info is because of the team that we get to work with. We work with such incredibly intelligent people, like Rona, for example. I cut my teeth in door-to-door business-to-business sales. I fell in love with it the moment I realized that I could control my financial destiny. The harder I worked, the better I did, the more successful I was. And I've been hooked ever since. So although I'm in leadership now, getting to serve a group of incredible enterprise sellers, I did the job.
Love it. I love the door-to-door background too. There is something about cutting your teeth on door-to-door. And those of us who have been there. Same with retail. Nobody.
Yes, if you can make that, then you can absolutely sell software.
I also remember if anybody was in Girl Scouts, you were literally going door to door to sell the Girl Scout cookies. There weren't these little tables and links and stuff. I swear that's where my sales, I was so competitive. I wanted that top prize. I think that's where my sales career honestly started, was door to door selling Girl Scout cookies.
I think so too. I think that's where a lot of our careers started, funny enough. But I will tell you a funny aside here. We just bought a new house, which is very exciting. And there's a no soliciting sign. And I already told my husband we can't take it down. I'm like, we are taking it down rather, because I was like, it feels wrong. It feels like we need to support the door-to-door sales. So we're going to dive in here. For anybody that's in the audience, if you have questions, we have a tab, the Q&A tab. You can drop your questions in there. If you drop them in the chat, we're going to lose track of them and we don't want to. So just drop those in the Q&A tab. And if you are a job seeker, just a little plug here, we do have a Women in Sales link for all Zoom Info open roles. And I pinned that into the chat as well. So make sure to check those out. They are hiring, which we'll talk about at the end of the event, but just wanted to make sure that's on all of your radar. So first things first, 2024 was an interesting year. I think a lot of us are feeling different feelings about 2024. Some people had a very celebratory year. Many, including many of our members, maybe didn't have the year that they were hoping for in 2024. And so as we, move now deeper into 2025, for those of us who came off a challenging year last year, how can we reset? How can we kind of recalibrate and refocus our energy in this new year? And Kayla, maybe we'll kick off with you.
It's a great question. I just met for coffee with a new hire who's starting with us on Monday, and he was mentioning that a lot of people say sales is a numbers game, but he says that sales is a mental game. And I absolutely want to double down on that. 2024 has come and gone, and it's time to, get your mind right. If you didn't have the year that you wanted, what are we going to do to change that? I think, to your good point, there are certain challenges that we faced in a downturn. Maybe the CFO at your biggest deal moved companies and it blew up that deal that was going to make your year. Or maybe somebody on your team just has better accounts to work. Listen, that's always going to happen, right? There's always going to be reasons and barriers that stand in your way. But the goal here is to excuse-proof your 2025 destiny. So it starts with getting your mind right, being able to compartmentalize what happened in 2024 and know that this is a new beginning. It's a beautiful thing if you can figure out how to work your mind so that it works for you. Everybody's on this call, so I'm assuming you decided to fight, right, instead of flight. And then I think it's important to reflect on the year that you had. And can you with even, a peer, a manager, somebody that you trust internally, talk through where you might have missed the mark. And it's important to take accountability on this, I think, versus, pointing to variables that were outside of your control. Using data can help to understand, what didn't you do enough of? What do you need to do more of? What did you do too much of that didn't move the needle? And then I think it's important to really stay agile and be willing to change. I think that sales is an evolution, and it really is change. That's the only constant. So those would be my 3 pieces of advice.
I love it. I love the excuse proof. I dropped it in the chat. I feel like we need t-shirts, excuse proof t-shirts. That is awesome. What about you, Rona?
Kayla and I are just so aligned. I feel like she just teed up perfectly, because when I was thinking through this specific piece, right? So my birthday's tomorrow, and that's not a shameless plug, but it's literally, I had to do the math. I'm not the best at math, being like, how many years have I been hitting reset? And I was like, it's going to be my it was just my 17th year that I went back to 0, right? In January. And so I thought about it, and I was like, what have I fully celebrate the 17 years, because I feel like it's given me the opportunity to trial and error how to get my, as an independent contributor, I've had amazing blowout years, right? Where maybe in the past I went into it and I was like, okay, I was overly confident. And so instead of humbling myself, I went in thinking I was going to be unstoppable, because the year before was just such a massive win. And very quickly the new year kicked me in the teeth. And I was like, okay, never mind, retaliating. Or I had a super challenging year, and I was like, I'm so eager to hit the reset button and not spend the time that I needed, to Kayla's point, in reflecting. So my biggest takeaway, right, when you're going into a new year, is to pay your respects to the last 12 months. If you do not invest time, and I know that Kayla, and this is why I'm saying we're so aligned. I know that Kayla was saying, find a peer, find a manager. I would honestly challenge everybody to have a very raw, transparent conversation with yourself. You're on the treadmill, you're doing housework, whatever. Have that conversation that maybe you wouldn't have with your manager, or you wouldn't have in your yearly review, where you look at, if it was a challenging year, you're being very real with yourself. And that's the only person you need to be real with. If you thought that, all of these things were out of your control, well, was 80% of it really out of control and the other 20% wasn't. And it's something that you could change and you can do better. And once you identify those places of opportunity, you will carry that into that new year and say, I'm not going to let that happen to me again, regardless of any of the outside factors. And if it was a great year and it was blowout year, great. But also that reflection is so important to see how you can replicate it. Don't just think it's going to happen again, because you clearly did certain things to get you to that point. So it's a big piece for me. Like, I absolutely believe it's a new year. You need to move into the momentum of starting over and getting yourself to where you want to be, but you have to pay those respects, because I think that there are so many lessons to be learned. Every year is a different ride. There's just, in sales, there is absolutely no way that you're going to be, every year is going to be the same cookie cutter. You're going to have all sorts of obstacles. You're going to be promoted. You're going to get a new book of business. You're going to get, go from an AE to an AM or vice versa. Either way. I just think that's really important. So same sentiment, different challenges to the group of like just having that conversation with yourself and being real.
Yeah. I mean, it's so critical too, because you think about it like insanity, as we say, doing the same thing over and over. If we had a rough year last year and we continue the same habits, we do the same prospecting techniques, we kind of replicate everything, how can we expect a different result? So I think that's so critical, that reflection piece. And I actually dropped a question in the chat to everyone just asking, how did people feel about 2024? Was it a good sales year? Was it a little meh? We got some good comments about like better than 2023. Bit of a roller coaster. I survived. So there's some different sentiment in there. So I think the big takeaway is, the year's behind us, for better, for worse. Some people saying Q4 was brutal. Second half of the year was better. So, all in all, that year's behind us. So we're moving ahead. So I think it's so critical to reflect, but also carry new momentum going into this next year. Before we pivot fully into 2025, one more question I wanted to ask both of you. Is there any kind of key learning or takeaway or something you unlocked in 2024 that you are taking with you or already implementing in 2025 so far?
When I was doing that self-reflection, so I'm obviously practicing what I preach, right? I recognized that there were a lot of more like old school sales philosophies that you kind of forget when you're in the grind for a long time. And for me, really, it was recognizing that the work that you put in, it will materialize. It doesn't necessarily, I mean, I'm in strategic accounts, but it applies to any segment that you're in. Like, the efforts that you put in, they might not, it's like little seeds, right? If you have to just keep on going, because they will all start to develop when that timing is right, with the continued nurturing. So sometimes you forget about that. Like, you forget, I mean, it's nice to like take a pause and recognize, well, my 2024, a lot of things materialized, but it was because of all of that work that I had put in previously. And it was just, it's time. And that's how you're also setting yourself up for success in this new year too, is continuing that mentality. Some of these things are going to be successful immediately. Some of them are going to take a little bit longer, but either way, it's the effort that you're investing. And I feel like that's just something it's a philosophy that, if you build, I feel like I say this on every single time I was speaking thing, but like, it's so real. I don't know if I'm aging myself, but field of dreams, like, if you build it, they will come. Like, that's the reality. It's how it is with your profession. It's how it is with the success in your sales role. It really is, the nature of the beast is you gotta build that thing, and then everything else kind of comes after.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I think that depending on the type of sale that you're in, if you're in a more transactional sale, then you are getting those quick wins. But to Rona's point, it is the little things that you're doing every day that materialize. I think as you start to go up market, you realize that there's a shift in what brings you pride on a daily, weekly, or even monthly basis, and what brings you a feeling of fulfillment. And you need to remind yourself that it's like compounding interest, right? It's not just like one day you wake up and you can retire. No, you're able to do that because you put effort towards something, every single week or every single month, and it turned into something beautiful. That is very similar to sales. And you have to make sure that you're doing those little things every single day. I think in 2024, what I realized and what I love, because I cut my teeth in door-to-door sales, is we're back in person, baby. You know, Alexine, you were talking about an in-person event that you hosted Galentine's Day. So much fun. I love being in person. I think that our prospects and customers are enjoying getting back out and in person. And so if you're in a sales role where, you know, you can meet a customer for coffee, where you can go to an event, where you can do an on-site, I think that you'll see that you're going to absolutely speed up your deal cycle by being able to build that relationship. And I'm super excited that we're back in person.
Oh, I could not agree more. And I really feel like 2024 was that year where there was that turning point where in-person started coming back. Even just a couple of weeks ago, one of our newest partners reached out and she was like, can we do our strategy session over lunch downtown instead? And I was so excited. I'm like, how fun it is to be with our partners, with our clients in person. You just like forget about that. And it's so nice to be back. So I fully agree. And I'm here for the return of in person and all the events that we're hosting with Women in Sales and Zoom Info. Like these are such a sentiment to the fact that people want to be together. They want that in-person connection. So it's awesome to see that happening.
It's the human aspect of it, right? Like there's a client or a target account. And then when you actually get that face-to-face, and maybe you'll talk about work, but then maybe you also talk about their kids or their hobbies, or, you know, you get a little bit deeper and then there's that relationship. I mean, I'm a big relationship person just in general, but I couldn't agree more. I feel like that is where magic happens, is like over a Cosmo.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we're just talking about Cosmos. Okay, so now we're going into 2025. We are diving in. A lot of us maybe just got our quota. Some of us wrote our own quota this year. And maybe people are just receiving their quotas. Some people are in different fiscal years. But say you just got your quota for the year. What do you do first? How do you get started? How do you start to make your plan of attack? Where do you begin?
I think that I learned pretty quickly that when you see, if you get your quota for the half or your quota for the year, you see this like gigantic number. And I maybe it's just me, but I look at it and I'm like, how the hell am I going to hit this? Like, who made this up? Right? Where did this come from? Help me understand. And so I learned early on that to help me not be overwhelmed is you just break that into like bite-sized pieces. What do I have to do this month? What do I have to do this quarter? How many customers does that mean I have to bring on, right? I'm in straight net new business. And so I just back into it using pretty simple math. Like, what's my average customer? And then, you know, we'll talk a bit more about this, but hopefully there's a way to score or prioritize either your existing book of business that you have an upsell target on, or if you're straight net new, you have a territory or a portfolio of target accounts that you're going after. And then how can we prioritize those so that we're spending our time on the most valuable prospects or customers possible?
And I would also say, Kayla, like in that strategy, it also goes back to, do you know your book of business, right? Like, do you know what fiscal year they're on? Do you know when their budget cycles are? Do you know, with your champions, when available budget might have historically popped up through different sales cycles, or, other pieces maybe from the learnings from the year prior, right? That you can apply into this new year about when you can map out. But similar to what Kayla was saying, I do the same thing. And I think that sometimes you get these like massive quotas and you're just every year, especially if you're performing well, you're just like, wait a second, oh, this is a little bit bigger. But working backwards for me, like you have to break it down 100%, but I tend to look at what is the target time period, or what is the compelling event, or what is that like one piece that I can work backwards from to say all of these things from that point to current day need to happen in order for me to do X. And I kind of apply that across the board with all of my different accounts. And I think that really makes it more tangible or manageable in terms of how do we get to this number, but also it's all state of mind. Like use it as motivation. I don't know. It drives me. I'm like, oh, you're going to, hit my target. You're going to put my quota higher this year. I'm going to show you, I'm going to blow it up. I feel like it's like also hyping yourself up. You have to be your own hype person too. You shouldn't feel defeated by it. But I feel like with strategy, with looking at historical I think you had mentioned data too, like data is everything, right? Like historical data in terms of close lost opportunities, in terms of close won opportunities, in terms of how these deals happened. That is legitimately what I feel like on a yearly basis I'm doing in terms of mapping out how to get to X number. And listen, it works. Sometimes you have to pivot. Sometimes magic happens that is not expected,
there's always a little magic. I mean, but that's if you're doing, I don't know. There's probably sometimes I say, I don't know if luck really exists, because I think that all the little things, like you end up creating your own luck, but sometimes there is a little bit of magic. And those are the deals that you land that you'll just remember forever.
And they pump you up. You're like, this is why I'm here. This is why
This is why we do it. Of course. I mean, we're all a little bit crazy. There has to be like a big win in it for us,
Salespeople are a different breed. And to be honest with you, I think that it's the best breed. I really believe like the skills in this profession they're life skills. They can be applied to everything. You can't say that about a lot of different professions, right? Like, so yeah, Delulu. I don't know. Somebody just said Delulu is my favorite word. And I feel like you got to be real Delulu to be in this every year. Start against you.
Yes. And what's funny is Rona does say that word frequently. So maybe we're all like one and the same here.
That might be the quote of the entire event here.
Yep.
I will say too, the first time, I don't know if you both remember, but the first time I got my first really big quota, same thing. You like look at that number and you're just like, absolutely not. Like there's no way this is happening. And I remember my VP at the time thought I was insane, but I didn't have any other way to break it down. So what I did was I went through the entire calendar year and took all of the business days and then took the number of business days. And I literally broke my annual target down into daily targets, which was so weird. And everybody's like, how is that going to help you? You're not going to close a deal every day. But it did, because it was like the one way that I could see, once I broke it down, it was like a few $1,000s. That was so much less menacing than this like $1 million, whatever, like target that I was looking down every single day. So even that helped me to like break it down in a silly, like what seemed like a really silly way. Fun fact, I tripled my quota that year. So it wasn't so funny, but I do think that that's so powerful. Like whatever kind of technique you need to use to get more comfortable, just understanding that when you look at a mountain, it is incredibly hard to look at that and it seems insurmountable. So until you start hiking and taking little bits at the time and traversing sideways, you don't really know that it's achievable until you're actually in it. So I think this is very sage advice. I absolutely love it. We're going to go layer deeper into the tactical. This is a question that comes up, I would say, on a weekly basis of women in sales. And I love seeing the responses, because our community, what I really love about women in sales is in certain channels, we get hyper tactical. People are dropping like full playbooks, all these strategies. So it's been incredible to watch, and they're just freely sharing these resources with one another. So this is a main question that comes up all the time. How do you organize and allocate your actual account list for the year? Do you use some kind of tiering system? Do you break things down by vertical? Do you prioritize based on like marketing signals? Just curious to hear how both of you attack that.
Do you want me to go first, Kayla?
Yeah, go for it.
This is going back to the comment I made earlier about truly knowing your book of business, right? Like, do you know each account to its foundational level, right? Do you know how it is that they budget? Do you know how it is that they, what their high level priorities are? What is the pain within the organization that is driving them to find X solution? Where they're struggling is their internal politics. And the reason I bring up all of these details, right, is because then when I start thinking about my strategy, it's twofold. One is going to be I'm in account management. I think it still applies to account executives as well and other segments. It's, have you already been working on X initiatives with them, right? What is in motion right now that you are continuing to push forward to the goals that you have set and the goals that you are aligning with that customer? If it is a new year with we all get new accounts every single year. You're starting at square one, which to me is very exciting. Sometimes like in account management, right? You've been working with relationships are great and you have that momentum, but then net new is like you're starting from square one. So at that point, I'll break it down into trying to understand, to your point, I think that you mentioned something about like market signals. I'll do the background research of what it is that these customers are doing. What are they like in market for? What do I see on their earnings? If they are public, what do I see on podcasts or newsletters or whatever information little pieces are out there? The reason all of that is hyper important is, one, to get that set and to get in front of the right individuals at the right time. I want to make sure that everything that I'm reaching out to them is relevant. It is such a competitive space, right? So how is it that you're going to make sure that that VP is going to take the conversation? All to say, I think though, like you start piecing all those things together, and then you have this plan of action where you know where you're going to put 20% of your energy, because these are accounts that are kind of maybe in account management, just maintaining relationships and keeping the lights on. And then you're going to put 80% of your energy on X accounts because you've identified these have the highest opportunities. These are currently in motion. This is what my pipeline, this is literally what that strategy that you put into place when you were breaking down your quota, you align everything to that strategy. So I feel like I covered all over the place in terms of how to actually go about in prioritization and trying to figure out, what the plan of action is. But I think it's a little bit of everything there.
Yeah, I think some really good points there, like know your book of business or know your territory. And also, I think know where you excel. And so when I think about how to prioritize a territory or a list of accounts, I think about not only buying signals and interesting moments in that company's trajectory that could open the door for you to have a really meaningful conversation, but also where do you excel? Are there specific personas or industries that you can target? Maybe you just came off of a great Q4 and you sold to an amazing company and you can go and try to hit that same industry, that same persona. You have a point of view, you have a use case, you can reference it. Do what you're great at. And then, of course, listen, I work for ZoomInfo. I think that data is paramount. The world is very big. Oftentimes, even if you have a territory, your total addressable market is very large. And without data, it's extremely hard to just like, who am I going to target today, right? Use data to help you understand the propensity to buy within your existing customer base or your territory. Things like, are they doing research on the services or products that you offer? Is there an interesting moment, like Rona said, in their earnings call that you can target? Do they have an initiative, right? For us, it's like companies that have an AI initiative or a data or technology initiative. That's amazing for us. It aligns directly with what we offer. We can help them with that initiative. I get so excited about it because it really does help you spend your time where you're going to get the most bang for your buck. And there's just nothing worse than trying to target accounts where there is absolutely no need. It's very difficult to try to create a need for a company.
I was also looking through the chat and I think it was Dan, he made a really good point about the human versus the account. And I think it also goes back to, I think Robert said earlier that information is power and like being a trusted advisor. Listen, everything is getting automated these days, right? I genuinely feel that people are begging for that human aspect of it. So yes, another layer of understanding your book of business is building these relationships where you present, and this is a big part of me personally, like as an extension of that customer's entire organization. In fact, I would argue to say, like, I want to know so much and be so like, and know all the gossip and know all the, politics internally, and be one of these, partners where they're trying to recruit me, or they're trying to hire me because they say this is the type of, employee that I would want to have on my team. They know so much about me, et cetera, et cetera. And with all of my champions and all the people that be genuine, like have a genuine intention, and like be present when you're having conversations and get to know them personally, because that human aspect is also something that you relate to. If you can't get in person, then you can definitely do it on a call. People can very much tell a vibe of whether or not you're being there to actually help solve for something, versus you're just blitzing call, or you're trying to hit your activity metric for the day, or whatever the excuse is, right? So be intentional in every conversation. I think it's really important.
Absolutely. This is so much great advice being dropped here. Quick side note, I just pinned a link. Now I just pinned a link to the Zoom Info try link, so you can sign up. If you haven't used Zoom Info yet, highly recommend. Obviously, we're big fans here at Women in Sales. So that'll get you in. And we're going to pivot now. So definitely keep submitting those questions. We're getting a bunch of questions coming in the Q&A tab. We're going to try to bookmark about 15 minutes at the very end here to get through those. But we are bubbling with questions here in the Q&A. I just scrolled through the chat. So the people have those, but if you put them in the chat, we're going to lose them. So just drop them in Q&A. As we move further into this conversation, we've talked about how we're going to attack our book of business, how we're thinking about our year. Now we're going to pivot into how we are quite literally attacking and building pipeline. And so would love to talk a little bit about what channels you both like to leverage. Everybody's feeling differently. If you are anyone who's on LinkedIn, which is probably everyone that's on this webinar, we're seeing no more cold calling. Yes, cold calling. Emails dead. Emails back. So there's so much out there swirling around. So I would be curious, strictly from each of your personal experiences, which channels you prefer to leverage when you're prospecting, what's worked well for you, and if you have any strategies for those specific channels that can help any of our participants here.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how you sell without cold calling. That's just me. I don't understand how you do that, right? Because at least as we go up market into the enterprise, everybody's important. And so if we're trying to understand current state and a point of view that we might be able to offer a director or a vice president or someone in the C-suite, we're wanting to have conversations with AEs and AMs and managers so we can understand what's going on in their world, right? And I think that oftentimes a way that you can miss your year is by not building pipeline. And I mean real pipeline that actually progresses. And so check in with yourself on a weekly and monthly basis. Did I generate real pipeline? And then the following month, is that progressing? Because again, we need to celebrate those small wins, and a small win is a deal progressing. Mm-hmm. To Rona's point, relationships are really important. If you have an existing book of business and you've cultivated a relationship, that is going to determine your success this year. One of my favorite wins as an account manager back in the day, I was working with it's like an extreme race company. I'm not going to name drop them, but I had gotten to the point where I was on site meeting with procurement, she was like my girl. Trish was my girl. And I said, what else can we earn, for your business? And she said, I think we give you everything, and I was like, well, just like show me who else you buy from. And she literally went into a filing cabinet and started taking out invoices. And we ended up landing $1 million deal for race cups, like the water cups that a volunteer will give you at a race if you're a runner. And that made my year. And it was just because we had the relationship and the comfort level where I could be candid and ask her what else she could give me for business. And, we ended up landing it.
I love that. I love that. That's such a cool idea too, where you have that level of relationship where you can literally ask, what is your tech stack? Like, let me just peek through that and see, because to your point, they're not going to know what they don't know. And so a lot of times our clients think we do X, Y, and Z. We created for women in sales a whole new category of partnerships because of the conversations that we were having and because of the ways that current partners were starting to nudge us in different directions. So they actually created an entire category for us that didn't exist prior to even a year ago. And so it's just incredible. I think there's nothing better than having those conversations, exploring with each of your partners as you're having prospecting conversations, digging in, all of that is great.
I don't think that people should shy away from asking their customers what is the architecture of your business? What is your tech stack? Because first of all, if you build the rapport and the trust, right, where you're not just coming in to offer a solution for the sake of offering a solution, but you truly are trying to understand, that's where you can be really transparent and honest and be like, this is where this fits and this is where it doesn't fit. But giving me that visibility is not to take out a potential, competitor that is in your tech stack, but more so to see, well, how do we align and enrich what it is you're currently doing? I mean, right now, there's so many different ways to integrate. There's so many different ways to partner just from like a tech stack position, right? That understand, like asking for that visibility helps you in your own personal strategy with the account, but also helps you just make it really intentional that you are there to really understand where it is that you can help them, where it is that you can make them succeed. And I think shooting in the dark and not having that visibility it's difficult to do that. I would also say, I mean, listen, you're an AE or you're an AM, you can have named accounts, but if you're not cold, like I will me and one of my coworkers celebrate because, we're in strategic accounts. It's been a while since like the pure cold calling, like days when we were in an SDR role and so we always like celebrate, like I reached out to 4 new people, like just picked up the phone and just called. Now, I will say that I will invest time, right, to ensure that my outreach is with purpose instead of just, hey, what's up? Like trying to say hi, but just calling to check in. Maybe
what's going on?
But the other thing I would say is use your network, your professional, your personal, your neighbor. You have no idea who they are connected to. Susie's mom works with blah, blah, blah at this Fortune 50 company that you just took into your book of business. Woo, that's a win. Or somebody that used to be that is one of the biggest plays that I often come across or use or help support other colleagues is, yeah, of course, I used to babysit the CEO's kid. Absolutely. Like I'll text him. I have his phone number, right? And that could be reciprocated really quickly too. So I definitely think that in pipeline building, there's all of the day-to-day actions, whether it's email, whether it's prospecting, or whatever it is. But then there's also outside of that activity metric, there is leveraging other resources that you have. And it doesn't have to be a tool, and it could be just like a personal aspect, right? So you never know who you're going to have a conversation with. I'm telling you, you don't know who's going to sit next to you on the plane. You don't know who's sitting next to you in a restaurant, or you're traveling for work or personally, and you're sitting at a bar and all of a sudden it's wild. So leverage that piece. People tend to forget that everybody's out there. You never know who you're going to meet.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's something to be said about figuring out which are your channels. There are certain channels that traditionally work better for each seller. I'm great with phones. I like in person, and I like social. And typically email is actually the one that I will navigate a bit away from if I'm doing cold messaging. I prefer to go any of the other channels before email. But I know other people are like, I strictly rely on email. Cold calling's last on my list. So you're going to start to get a feel as a salesperson for what works for you. And to your point earlier, I think Kayla said it, figure out what works for you and do more of that. And if you know that you have a success with one channel, then lean into it more. So I think it's awesome to hear these conversations and to hear different sellers talk about this, because all the time I go on LinkedIn and it's like, this channel's dead, this channel's dead. And the reality is no channel's dead. It's working for someone. People use the weirdest channels. I will never forget, this guy told me he does prospecting. I will never do this in my lifetime via cold FaceTime. Would I ever do that? Absolutely not. It feels very intrusive. He booked like 5 to 10 meetings a week this way. It is gutsy, and it worked for him and whatever he was selling at the time. And so figuring out what works for you, figuring out what is going to be most comfortable, that's up to you to decide as a salesperson too. So it is very interesting to hear how everybody prefers to prospect. And with that in mind, that takes us right into our next question, which is really one of the questions that people love to ask to panelists all the time. And that's what systems and tools you're using. I think maybe we can predict one of the tools that you both may be using. I don't know. It's just a guess.
Yeah.
But I would love to hear about your day-to-day. What are the main tech tools that you're living in? What's working best for you? And definitely plug ZoomInfo too, because some people might not know what all the use cases are. Maybe talk about Copilot. So Kayla, why don't we start with you for this?
Sure. So in my role, I love to be customer facing, and normally one of my sellers will invite me on a call. And back in the day, I would either have to listen to the last couple of calls, which is hard to do when you have a packed day, even if you speed it up to 1.5, or I would ask the seller to send me, notes, which sometimes they're amazing and sometimes they're really subpar. I don't know how I lived without Copilot in the past, because now what ZoomInfo does is it takes all of that amazing information, your chorus calls, emails, meetings, and it's going to literally push out exactly what we're looking to achieve, what happened on the last meeting, and it's going to summarize it. And I don't know how I lived without it. I'm definitely 50% more productive now. And I'm also a big user of Chat GPT, trying to summarize earnings calls really quickly, trying to bubble up headlines and news that might be informative, initiatives of the company. And that absolutely helps us be more prepared. And I think when you're more prepared, you can sell better and ultimately lead to close won revenue.
Absolutely.
I feel like it was funny because I was on site the last 2 days with a client. We were actually presenting to their sales kickoff, their sales dev kickoff. We were just transitioning them on to Copilot. But I had like this genuine conversation with one of the SDRs, because it's funny, they had a whole bunch of different vendors there, and they were saying that everybody was saying the same thing about AI, about different, about insights. And we had a very honest conversation. I was like, the differentiator is the volume of insights and the data foundation so that you can immediately action to improve your efficiency. And listen, we all have so many tools just from a company perspective. Whatever company you're working for, they get you this and that and the other. And the adoption is a big part of the struggle that I think anybody that's selling SaaS too. But without trying to drink my own Kool-Aid or sell my own brand, I literally told this guy, I live and breathe in my Copilot environment now, because it's not because I work at ZoomInfo. I mean, I would have died to have this when I was I've been at ZoomInfo for almost 4 years, but I would have died to have this in my other roles, because the reality is, if you're trying to truly understand foundationally your entire book of business in each account, you are going to go to so many different places to gather that information. If you're wanting to reach out and have a compelling reason for having that conversation, or for having that VP want to take your call, it's not just about what research they're doing online, but it is about what podcast they went on and started talking about the challenges that they had in 2024 and what they're working on in 2025. And now Copilot is pulling all that information. And whether I'm working at ZoomInfo, now or in another 5 years, or I'm at another sales organization, I'm going to still rely on a solution that's going to give me the full 360. And it's not from a place of, oh, I'm plugging anything. It's from a place of, this is what I do on a daily basis now. I get Slack notifications. This is terrible advice for work-life balance, so do not do what I'm saying.
I already know I do it. I already know I do it.
Protect your work-life balance. But I get Slack notifications that literally says, blah, blah, blah contact has been on your website searching on this page. And sometimes I get a little excited at like, whatever, if I'm not busy, I'm like, oh, maybe I'm just going to go on right now and like, plan my day for tomorrow or reach out, whatever it is. But that visibility is so powerful, and it's just such a time saver. And if you don't have access to it, then my recommendation, like the way that it's like going through, the different, to Kayla's point, like ChatGPT, or I will go on customer websites, like those are the resources that I'll have to go across the board just to get my better understanding of the actual account. But it really is kind of a game changer just in general. And the way that we're approaching the market with it too is just from that partnership perspective of how do we fit into your tech stack and how do we provide then all of the intelligence that you need to help power those different segments within your organization. And let's partner doing that with other tools in that tech stack and the integrations and like available to make you super successful. So it doesn't even have to be like a one versus the other. But yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think this is the part where there's this big conversation happening. Is AI going to replace salespeople? This is the use case to use AI. Let AI do the research piece, take off the administrative work, take off this busy work that's taking you away from what you actually want to be doing, which is talking to customers. This is very much the use case that I believe in more than anything for AI. And I think through leveraging solutions like this and automating parts of our process like this, it enables us to actually become better sellers because we're spending more time with our customers. I actually think where we took a step back was where we stopped spending as much time with customers and we tried to over automate. Or I saw a comment in here that people like to get the templates, but they always want to make sure to reword those. Totally agree. Put it in your own language, switch it up a little bit, keep some of the core pieces there. So this is where AI is going to really come and level our industry up as a whole. So I'm super excited about this. I think it's great too. We are going to do one more question, but then the Q&A runneth over. So we're going to head to the Q&A after that so we can answer some of these audience questions, which I think I have 4 pages now.
Woo! So I love the engagement.
We might need to take some of these into the Women in Sales Slack community afterwards because we're probably not going to hit all of them. But maybe actually we'll go there first because my last question was going to be about advice that you would leave some of our attendees with. So maybe we'll actually do that question last and we'll go right into Q&A. So if you have a Q&A question, now's the time. This is the last notice. And I'm going to look through a few of these. And then what I'm going to do is hopefully pop these onto the screen. This is an interesting one. So I'm going to pop this over. This is from Catherine. And I'll read it to you in case it doesn't all show up. What is your long-term play for a customer who you can just tell is not open to or ready to sign off? What information or tools do you try to use to keep them on the hook long-term?
Well, I mean, first I would ask, like, is it a feeling or have you asked that question directly? Because I enjoy more of like I guess I would say somewhat radical candor. Like I like just asking. I don't really like going off of a feeling because oftentimes like I understand gut feelings, we can have them, but I think just asking that question directly is a good place to start. Like, hey, Rona, my feeling might be off. Is this something that we should actually be prioritizing this quarter? And let them say yes or no. And then respond accordingly. If it's no, okay, help me understand what's standing in our way.
It's like that line that's like, guys, I always butcher all of the sayings, so I'm going to preface it, but it's like, assumption is making an ass out of you or me. What?
Yes.
Whatever that saying is.
Assuming makes an ass out of you and me. Yeah.
Right. I mean, I think it takes some time in your sales career to just, if you've built the rapport and you've done your due diligence prior to that conversation, you should feel comfortable in having a very clear, concise conversation. Now, let's just going back to the question and like it genuinely being it's not the right time. I think a lot of people make the mistake of being like close book on to next, right? Instead of this goes back to like planting the little seeds. So you can continue. It's also part of the relationship building because it's like, I hear what you're saying. I appreciate that. I will not continue to whatever. Let's reconnect at X time. But then during that time period, I will shoot over like something that pops up that I see that's relevant to maybe what it is that they're doing, maybe what it is that personally they shared with me, like, so that I'm still top of mind. Like I haven't kind of, it's warm, it's not hot, but it goes from hot to warm so that it doesn't go completely cold. Because sometimes we just, it's
value is key. So
Yeah.
if you do get a no, it's all good. If it's a good fit customer, but just not right now, that's okay. Timing is really just another type of objection, but you continue to add value. And the great thing is like everything's evolving. Businesses are evolving daily, and something will happen within that company. Either, their contract will, expire, or they'll be ready to go out to RFP, or maybe there's going to be an executive move or change, and a champion that you used to work with or used your business in the past comes and starts working for that company, right? So you just want to continue to keep that on like your, let it bake plate, right? Let it simmer.
That's
and be sure to add value.
Yeah. And stay organized. I will transparently say I'm not good at staying organized, but if you like make it a priority and to keep tabs, like use your whether it's like Salesforce or whatever it is to like track that, just keep yourself accountable. So I feel like you said that we had 4 pages of chats, and if we keep going into
we're going rapid fire. No, this is great. So here's another question. I really like this question. I'm going to pop it onto the screen here. Oh my gosh, it floated away. Okay, we're back. How much are you relying on qualified leads from your marketing departments, or heading off on your own to find a lead based on instinct/signals? What overall do you consider to be a signal? This is definitely a little bit of a co-pilot layup, such as a big deal that the company has done, or simply a sign that someone was internet searching in your area. So basically the TLDR of this question is, how much are you relying on qualified leads from marketing, and what kind of signals are you paying most attention to?
I'll preface this by saying I love every single person on our marketing team, and I think that we do a really great job too. But if you're solely relying on one channel to uncover leads that are in market, that should be part of your wheelhouse, right? It shouldn't be, and I don't think that question was insinuating that it's the only way that you're getting direct leads, but I'm just saying, like, that I would also kind of challenge it to say, is your marketing team within your organization aligned to a targeted type of campaign where it's leveraging the in-market and the insight, the visibility to help provide opportunities? Because we'll go into the whole go-to-market strategy of a marketing team there. In that conversation, we can really digress. But outside of just, I personally do not wait for inbounds. I think it's also a little bit different with strategic. And I think it's also a little bit different with on the account management side. I think it's also it's the insights that give you the compelling event, and it's the foundational knowledge of the account that gives you the ability to build that story together. And that's how personally I go about it in terms of producing opportunities or leads. But I don't know, it's been a while. I haven't been in a role in quite some time that has been like all inbound and that's all you rely on. I think it's funny because that onset I came from is just outbound strategy is key these days. Like it just has to be part of the equation. So yeah. I don't know if it necessarily gave you a direct answer, but I think it also comes down to marketing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the biggest things I learned over 10 plus years in like high growth startups is, if your marketing leads, if you are, for example, getting like a small quantity, like maybe like 0.03% of your book is marketing leads. If the quality is way off, talk to your marketing team, not in an accusatory way, not saying like your leads are trash, MQLs suck. That is the worst way to go about it. And that's what often happens, and why there was a historic kind of tension between sales and marketing. Instead, let them know like, hey, I was actually looking, I saw that these 2 signals indicated more the deals that actually did move to closed won, whereas these ones that I'm getting notifications of that they're MQLs, these actually none of these have moved forward to deals. Therefore, maybe we could reprioritize, have those conversations, be open, be honest, but also be understanding. Like they're doing a role, you're doing a role. We don't always understand everything about marketing, and they don't understand everything about us. So the more you can have that open and honest conversation, the better.
Don't send them corporate bro videos about
yeah, definitely. We have 5 minutes left, so I'm going to ask one more. I'm going to combine a couple of the questions from the Q&A. These ones were submitted anonymously, so but you don't have to name names. But if you were, I guess to phrase this question differently, how do you address customer objections that are talking about your competitor or already using your competitor? How do you kind of differentiate yourself against your competitors? Basically, there were several questions about how do I address competitors within the sales process?
Yeah. I mean, I think that candidly, it depends on like what you're selling. And it depends on the companies that you're selling to. Oftentimes when you're really up market with those Fortune 100s, like the reality is they might be using multiple vendors, and that's all good. You can all play nice together. I mean, it would be great to think that you're going to be the only provider for $1 trillion company, but that's unlikely. And so I think the reality is understanding what your differentiators are, what the problems are that you've uncovered that your solution serves best, better than anybody else in the game.
I always say if you're spending time talking about your competitors, you are giving them free publicity, and you should be focusing on yourself. Only because, one, don't come in arrogantly thinking that you are the solution for everything and anything, because that's not going to help in building that relationship. But two, there's a lot of times I come into conversations and some of them have stemmed from the fact that our competitors were literally selling me for them. Like
name dropped ZoomInfo, you know, here's why we're better than ZoomInfo, for example. And they're like, oh, I haven't even looked at them yet. And it's like, well, thanks, appreciate it. Now we're on the RFP as well.
I started at a company, Wedding Wire, and we were literally up against the Not Worldwide, which was the #1 wedding website in, wherever. And I swear this is like where the foundation of my sales experience comes from, is because I had to sell against like the leader in the industry. But I used to come into conversations being like, listen, if you can afford both, do it. Like the more you need more channels of whatever, but I would spend more time talking about like what differentiate, like just me, I would kind of deflect. But I think that that's like the way that you should go into it, is it's focusing on yourself and not necessarily on the competitive piece.
And I think that you can also use like, if it does come down to, hey, what are the differences? Like using customer voice, right? Because listen, obviously we have skin in the game. We're selling the solution that they're asking about, but being able to use customer voice with a company that is partnered with you, and maybe they moved from the incumbent, to your company, and you can tell that story using customer voice.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, true rapid fire, because we have 2 minutes to go. Thank you both so much. What is one piece of advice that you would recommend to everyone that's on this call today to help them hit quota in 2025? Kayla.
Selling is a team sport. Put the ego aside. Sell as a team. That's your solutions, your engineers, your product, your manager, your VP. Go get it together.
Love it. Rona?
I would say, one, somebody said in the chat, give yourself grace. It's ebbs and flows, dude. Like, don't get in your head and don't get caught up. Level check yourself to say, today was X, tomorrow will be different. And then I would also say, I'm not going to go on that tangent, but yeah. I was like, this is going to be a spiral.
I would say head to Women in Sales, leverage the resources throughout the year, take advantage of the free memberships that you can get, and you'll get more opportunities like this to hang out with ZoomInfo. So real quick, Kayla, we have some job seekers that are in the audience today.
Yes.
I dropped the ZoomInfo open roles link. Can you mention a couple roles that you're hiring for right now in case
Yeah.
work at ZoomInfo?
Shameless plug. I'm hiring for my enterprise team. So looking for talent that has a background selling up market into the enterprise. I would absolutely love to have a conversation if you're interested. And you'll see on our careers page that we're hiring in other segments as well. So if you better align with mid-market or SMB, please reach out and our talent team will be in touch. If you're a great fit for my enterprise team, you can find me on LinkedIn, Kayla Prunier.
Work for Kayla.
Yeah. Connect with Kayla, connect with Rona, connect with myself if we aren't connected, though I hit the connection limit on LinkedIn, so don't take it personally if we're not.
Well, you're kind of a big deal.
No, but thank you all so much for being here. We absolutely love these events. Thank you, ZoomInfo. We are headed into our second year of partnership with the ZoomInfo team. They have been incredible to Women in Sales. So we are going to keep the good rolling. This will be available as a recording after we wrap today. And we hope to see you at many more events. We have 5 more webinars with ZoomInfo planned for 2025 alone. So we are going to be hanging out a lot, and stay tuned for those updates.
Thanks so much.
Thanks so much. This was a blast.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.